I'm a freelance tour guide, the kind who travels so much the suitcase knows the way home better than I do. On the cover of my notebook, there's a creased paper map, my mother's keepsake. She was a geography teacher. She told me, when you go far, carry two things, a map and humility. One points the way, the other points your heart. I thought I understood until I met Mark, a guest who asked the sort of questions that make the whole world laugh, and then fall silent. Our first trip together was Paris. At the visa counter, Mark beamed. I'd like a visa for the country of Schengen so I can see the whole nation. I smiled. Schengen is an agreement, not a country. He tilted his head. Then where's the capital so I can check in? The agent turned away so she wouldn't laugh out loud. I opened my old map for Mark those fine hairline borders. Some frontiers are invisible and very real. Not seeing them doesn't mean they aren't there. Days later, we were in Auckland. A light rain, the air salted with sea. A couple in our group whispered, "Can we see wild kangaroos this afternoon?" I pointed toward the horizon. "Kangaroos are in Australia. This is New Zealand." They blinked, but they're next to each other on the map. The Tasman Sea isn't a shared swimming pool. Distance isn't measured by finger widths, but by waves and wind and things you can't shrink into a selfie. In Stockholm, Mark laid €200 on the exchange counter. Please change it 1-to-1 €1 for 1 krona, easier to remember. The clerk smiled. Sweden uses krona SEK, sir, and the rate isn't 1-to-1. Mark frowned. How complicated an entire continent and no uniformity. I thought to myself, unity isn't sameness. It's walking together while honoring difference. In the Alps, a green valley opened like a gentle cut between mountains. Water thundered off a high cliff. A little girl in our group tugged her mother's sleeve. What time do they turn the waterfall on? Do they turn it off at night to save power? Everyone chuckled. I patted her head. Nature doesn't have a switch. Like the heart, it runs when it must and rests when it must. No one gets to press the button. Giza burned like shards of glass. A young man squinted at the pyramids. Why don't they sweep off the sand? It would look cleaner, better for photos. The local guide smiled. They've stood here for thousands of years. Sand is their historical robe. Nothing needs to be glossy to deserve reverence. Sometimes the dust is what reveals the depth of time. Back in London, Mark was certain. I'll drive across the bridge to Dublin. I spread the map. Between here and there lies the Irish Sea. You fly or take a ferry. Mark shrugged. Why doesn't Europe build a proper bridge for visitors? Some things aren't simple because they shouldn't be like a body of water separating two shores of history, like a distance that ought to be respected rather than filled in. In Kyoto, a small sign at the onsen read, "Guests with tattoos may be refused for cultural reasons." A man in our group bristled. Discrimination. The staff bowed and explained patiently and at length. I walked him into the garden and pointed to a crimson maple. This beauty comes from keeping the laws of the seasons. Culture is like that. It isn't slamming the door on anyone. It's an invitation to tread lightly. He went quiet for a long time, then nodded as if taking off muddy shoes at someone else's front step. Sydney in December hit 95 degrees Celsius. A man in our group scowled at the forecast. December is winter, this board is wrong. I smiled. In the southern hemisphere, seasons reverse. He opened his phone to consult a personal, global calendar. Doesn't match. The Earth tilts 23.5 degrees. Our heads tilt too often toward ourselves more than toward reason. Florence smelled like ovens and tomatoes. A young woman asked, "Do you have Chicago-style deep dish like the good American kind? Or a Domino's nearby? I took her to a tiny Neapolitan place, flour still dusting the baker's hands. She sighed. Too classic. Hard to go viral. I laughed. Some dishes are born to travel far. Others are meant to stay home and wait for us to return. Athens carried hot stone and murmuring myths. A boy eyed the Acropolis. Why don't they finish it? Looks all broken? The Greek guide answered slowly. It was finished. 2,500 years ago. The rest belongs to Time War and us. I heard my mother's voice. Don't only ask if it's pretty, ask how long it has lived. In Tuscany, my phone rang. Mark was frustrated. My laptop can't connect to my home Wi-Fi in Texas. It's a global network. I explained Wi-Fi covers only a few dozen meters. He sighed. The world is flat, but the network's all bumpy. The world is flat on a map. In real life, it has hills both in signal and in understanding. And then we stood on a boat in Ha Long Bay. Sunset spilled over red sails. A voice piped up, if you built a resort, a golf course, a water park on these rock islands, perfect. You're leaving money on the table. Our local guide, born among the fishing villages, smiled sadly. Some places should let nature be the creative director. Silence settled. Oars skimmed the water, signing the surface with a quiet signature of respect. That night, Mark found me by the rail eyes on the line of fire still on the horizon. On the first day, I asked about the capital of Schengen. Looking at the bay tonight, I think I need a visa to respect. He showed me a photo of his daughter Lucy smiling before an artificial waterfall. I don't want her to grow up thinking waterfalls have a switch. I want her to know some things don't belong to our will. I told Mark about my mother's map, a patch of wrinkled blue sea borders, thin as thread corners yellowed by the sweat of my hands each time I got lost. The map tells you where you are. Humility reminds you you're not the center. Mark was silent, then said softly, I've carried too many itineraries and too little empty space. At the airport, we shook hands. Thanks for not mocking me, just pointing the way he said. I replied, thank you for changing the itinerary in your head from me to us. He waved. Next time I'll teach Lucy that seasons flip in the southern hemisphere. Krona isn't Euro and onsen is culture, so tread lightly. Italian pizza doesn't need a thick crust to be good. The Acropolis was once perfect, and Ha Long is most beautiful when we add nothing. His plane roared down the runway. I sat in the lounge and opened my notebook. The map fluttered maybe from the air conditioning, maybe because one more person had learned how to fold the ego and unfold the world. I thought about the oh my God questions Mark had asked and smiled. We all have a first day standing before a strange map. The difference is whether we pin the world to our preferences or learn to read the markers it already has. Since then, I've led groups across many borders, stamps and passports, the briny taste of ocean wind, a Sunday church bell at noon, the awkward pause before a Kyoto bathhouse rule, the sweetness of fresh tomato on Neapolitan dough, a boy's sweaty brow in Athens as he hears about stones 2 millennia old. I carry my mother's mantra like a charm. Humility is a passport. Without it, you can stand anywhere and still be lost. In time, I realized Mark had taught me that again. After all the naive misunderstandings, he was the first in our group to stand a long while before the sea, not taking pictures, not asking questions, just resting a hand over his heart and whispering as if stamping a passport into a new territory, the territory of respect. And I understood sometimes the longest journey isn't measured in miles, but in the distance from ourselves to others. When we're willing to walk that far, the world opens on its own, not with bridges or switches, only with a heart that knows how to be still.